Hey guys, you are back with another one of Arbiter's Garrysmod tutorials. Today we're going to be tackling Expression 2. Very scary. Now, I've been going over this, I was asked to do this a long time ago, but I didn't know squat about Expression 2. And I've been following a tutorial on the internet that I found on the Garrysmod forums. If you were to go on Google and type in Expression 2 tutorial, you get there, a beginner's guide to Expression 2. And this has been written by a Garrysmod user named SpecterCat, I think it was. Yeah, SpecterCat. And it's a brilliant tutorial. It's very simple. He gives you examples of things that are going on. He gives you examples of code. You can't really see there because of the resolution, but he explains what everything is. And he's really good. So if you want to get ahead of it, if you want to get ahead and get a head start and do this yourself, go ahead. Here's a beginner's tutorial. It's brilliant. Okay. So besides that, I'm going to explain what this is myself, but this is like the 5th time I've had a go at this tutorial because all the times I've tried have been a bit crap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow things so far down it's going to seem like we're going nowhere at all. Now I'm going to explain things bit by bit, as detailed and as slowly as possible, just so I get the idea across, get everything across that I can without getting ahead of myself or confusing you lot. So what we're going to do today is we're going to be covering how to write, how to set up to write an expression. So when we go into the Expression 2 writing tool, it's in wire control, chip expression. We have how to spawn the chip sizes up here. This is normal. This is the model that you're using. I'm using the modern one because it whatever. And these down here are expressions that you have saved or already have. Now I already have a few here. I don't know where I've gotten one. There's the iris control one that I wrote myself that doesn't really work because I'm having trouble. If you press update, it updates to new to things you've just written or things that it didn't know were there. Open editor, if you select a expression you've already written and press an open editor, you can edit it further. Not furtherly, that's not a word. You can edit it further, and that lets you continue to write expressions if you're saving them or whatever. But what we're going to be using is the new expression, and this just opens up a blank window that we can work in. So if we open this up, there is a foreword here from the people who've written the mod or whatever, and they're talking about stuff here. There is a link to a wiki here, and if we just copy this and go have a look on the web browser, it is for Christ's sake, 404 and have a look. It is a much more detailed explanation of what Wire Expression 2 is, but it's a lot more complicated as well. So I would say only have a look at this if you know what it is you're doing first, as to not confuse yourself. So that's that out the way. So we're going to start writing our new expression. Okay. Okay. So when you present it with the blank window, you have these 5 lines here: name, inputs, outputs, persist, and trigger. Now I'm going to explain what each of these are, giving examples, and then well, that's it really. I'm just going to explain these 5 lines. These 5 lines are consistent with every expression you will ever write because they set up the parameters of the expression you are writing. You can always go back and edit them, and to delete them is a very bad move, just so you know. So the first thing is at name. That's an at symbol if you can't tell. And what this does is it sets the name of the expression. As you can see on the side here, we've got add, iris control, multiply, get. It's all simple. So the name, what we're going to do, we're going to call this first expression, and that's the name of this expression. When you go to save it, it kind of takes that in, but obviously you can't put spaces in, so it just replaces it with an underscore, and that means that when you save it, it'll appear on the side here as, there it is, first expression, and that just means you can go back and edit it whenever you want, and that'll be saved now in that list that I showed you before. Okay, inputs. Inputs are things that the expression will receive in order to work with. If I was to just illustrate on the add gate here, we can see it has inputs of A, B, C, D, E, whatever, and those are inputs. They take in values, as we know, and perform an add on them. So our expression for I need to update that. First expression, open editor. As you can see there, that's what we had saved. Make sure you don't put any QQs in or anything like that. Make sure you whatever. Make sure that this stays consistent, because if you put in any random characters, it'll flip out and go nuts. So we're going to define our inputs. Now, what with inputs, you can have multiple inputs on the same line that you just separate with a space, but they always must start with a capital letter. You cannot have an input, let's say input 1, you cannot have that with a lowercase I. If I was to change that to a capital I, you see it goes green, that means it's happy with that. If anything is red when you're typing it in, that's bad. Red's bad. So we're going to have two inputs, A and B. Now you can see, all I've done is separate them out with a space, and that means that they are two different variables. So if I was to save this and spawn it, and then look at it with the wire tool, see that has two inputs there, A and B, and I've just written that. So go back to expression 2, back to edit it. So those are the inputs. They feed in values from elsewhere, from constant values, buttons, anything. Outputs. Outputs works the same as inputs, but obviously it's going out of these are things that happen after the expression has happened. So for the case of making these different, I'm going to call these C and D. Also have to be capital letters, also separated by a space. If you only put one output in, whatever you wire to that output will just automatically select it. So don't be scared if you only have one output and you wire something to it and it doesn't ask you for what you want to be doing, because that's normal. It just thinks, oh, there's only one output, that must be what they're wiring it to. So those are outputs. Now the persist. The persist is not something we're going over today because it's slightly more complex. It's not as complex as you might think. It's not like, whoa, what is persist? It's fairly normal, but I'll explain it at a later date. Now, this is the last thing you need to look at. Oh, by leaving that line blank is absolutely fine. You just that's cool. The trigger. The trigger is essentially what starts off the expression doing what it does. Now, this can be when a value is changed, when a value is made bigger, when it's taken away, anything. When anything changes, the trigger would go off. But you have to define what it is it's looking for to go off. So we want it to monitor everything. We want to say if A changes, then trigger, if B changes, then trigger, if B goes away, whatever. And the way we do this is we say trigger all. It has to be in lowercase. The other day I set it to capital A, and you see it's gone green there. It thinks that's a variable, and that's not good because it means that it's waiting for the all variable to change, which doesn't exist, so nothing was happening. So we're just going to change this to trigger all in lowercase, and that just means that when anything changes, it runs the expression. Now, to wire this up, can't speak. We're going to write a tiny expression, and all we're going to do is we're going to wire this up so that when I use the expression, it makes sense to you. So we're going to go down the line just so I'm separating it out, and what I'm going to do, we're going to translate A into an output. So A is a value that's going into the expression, and all we want it to do is come out the other end. So we're going to say A equals, oh sorry, the other way around, C equals A, and that means that the output C just equals A. So whatever we feed in as value A will come out as value C. Makes sense. I'm just going to do the same with D. So D equals B, and then we're going to save this and close it. So now when I refresh this, it should have two outputs. So we've got a screen here with value A and value B. I'm just going to wire A up to the gate, and as you can see we've got output C and D. So at output C, and wire B up to output D. And this just means that when we wire, when we wire up A and B, which I'm going to do now with this constant value, they should hopefully display what A and B are. I know it's a bit of a weird way of doing it, but I'm just going over basics here. So A is value 1, and B is value 2. When we look at the screen, there we go. So we have written something that takes in inputs and just puts them straight back out as what they are. If I was to erase these two lines that we've written in, new expression, not new expression, first expression, there we are. If I was to just erase these two lines and save and exit, to replace it, you can see that that's not working. expression is basically code writing. You are writing your own procedures of inputs and outputs, whereas the wire gate does it all for you. You are controlling what happens inside the gate, which gives you a lot more leg room, if that's the right term, to do whatever you want. You can write complex maths, you can write a lot more procedural things. It'll save you a lot of time, and I'm going to display that. I'm going to explain that next in the basic maths tutorial of Expression 2. So hopefully you've understood something about setting yourself up for writing the first expression here, and I will see you next time. So good luck writing your own expressions, and I hope this has been informative, at least for the most part. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.